conversation. Here we go. We are live and we are talking about the emerging leaders in the Democratic Party. And we're looking for our Navalny, our MLK, our Kennedy brothers, those individuals who have the panache, the je ne sais quoi, if you will, um, and the leadership message that goes along with it. And organically, it appears if you're looking at it objectively on the blue side, that there's only one name that really stands out. Possibly, you could argue two. Um, I think. Let's go up to the beautiful confines of the Upper Hudson River Valley. Brock and Ellis joins us just outside New York City. Brock, mind meld. Who do you think that one name is?
I mean, I really just feel like the Democratic Party doesn't necessarily want to admit or acknowledge it, but AOC is the leader of the party in my mind. And I think it was the Atlantic that wrote the article, and I didn't read the whole article, but I saw it in my feed, and I think someone wrote an article about like the star of AOC, and it was like, and it got me to thinking about that conference in Germany just a couple days ago, where I think three Americans went over there. Newsom went
Right.
over, Rubio was there, and AOC was there, and they all gave speeches and did like town hall type of settings. And AOC just outshone the other two so dramatically. And it was just like she does that all the time. When she went around with Bernie in the barnstorming, the rooms were
Yes.
packed. When she
That.
walks down the hallways of Congress and just gets to ask a question off the cuff, she'll stop and give like a 30-second clip that's both funny and insightful and cuts right through. She's just, I think we just have to acknowledge that she's as talented a politician as we've seen come around in a long time. And because she has the charisma and the messaging capability of a younger person who knows how to do social media and those Instagram
Yep.
lives. She's also really good on policy, and she's
Yep.
really good in those congressional, um, meetings where they,
Oversight hearings.
yeah, the
Yeah.
oversight type of meetings, right? So she's great in the Q&A, right? She's well prepared and she cuts into it. I know she's young, she's a woman, there's a lot of she's Latina, a lot of things against her that maybe make a lot of people not want to acknowledge that, but I think she's the voice of the party and she brings energy and brings the youth into the party. She's someone they can get around. They're not going to get around like Chuck Schumer. And, I feel like Jeffries has fumbled the ball with the opportunity he's had because he's just
Yep.
too middle of the road, too political in a way that AOC shoots from the hip, comes
Right.
across more genuine. Certainly, I think she's
And
the
you
leader.
know, I absolutely, I agree with you 100%. And I think you're right about Mr. Jeffries. I wish he had come out guns blazing and given us the old Brooklyn Hakeem Jeffries instead of, trying to walk this political tightrope, which is no longer an advantage anymore. You don't have to be a statesman. You need to be a fighter, right? And one thing we can count on, and we saw it with the Barnstorm tour with Bernie and AOC, is they're going to fight for what's right. I mean, they didn't fill those rooms up with people that they paid to come. People paid to come see them. So, stop telling me, that Chuckles is still the lead. Chuck needs to go. His day is done, right? The day of writing letters and, strongly worded letters. Those days are done. People are throwing that shit. They're hitting that shit and putting it in the delete file immediately. These Republicans, are literally playing tackle football while we got a bunch of wussies on the D side, with flags on, who refuse to put on a helmet and go make a play. And, we need every fighter we can get. And, I'm trying to be realistic. I would love to point out Jasmine Crockett as your leader of the party, but I'm being realistic. I think as a Latina, she has a better chance than Jasmine of being at the top of the ticket. This Texas Senate race is going to tell us a lot.
Yeah. But, but
Um,
but AOC also, I mean, she's just been better on policy, right? She got
yeah,
destroyed on the Green New Deal. Now we have no climate change policy right now. Like we've wiped it all out. There's no rules on automobiles any emissions anymore. Like we're back to the 1970s when there was so much smog in LA, right? That no one could even breathe in the city. We've
right,
wiped away 50 years of legislation. She's on the other side of the coin pushing it when it's not popular.
right.
She chased fucking Amazon out of the Queens when it wasn't popular. But boy, was she ahead of the curve on Jeff Bezos and not wanting that fucker in the neighborhood, right? Because she
No
saw it
doubt.
as exploitive. She saw it as gentrification. She saw it as a place that didn't treat workers properly. And she fought and won
He's
that
right.
fight. And look,
Yep.
8 years later, now it's sort of like mainstream, right? Now no one wants
Right.
Amazon in their neighborhood. No one wants, ICE warehouses in their neighborhood. And sort of neighborhoods are waking up to the fact that you can fight against these things when you don't want them. So that's where
Right.
she's ahead of Jasmine. She's also been, she's been in the public eye longer than Jasmine. So in a way, Jasmine's older than her, but Jasmine, AOC's more experienced. She's put policies on paper. She's taken unpopular causes or
Yeah.
stances where she just went by her gut, not by what the polls said. Hakeem
Right.
Jeffries is still trying to not. He doesn't want to say dismantle ICE or dissolve ICE because some polls have told him that that might not work in some tight districts in Wisconsin or something. But when you don't
Or see,
come
or
strong,
Iowa, that diner in Iowa,
no one wants to follow
still trying
you
to get that fucking
when
guy.
they think that you're tiptoeing.
Right. Right. And that's the thing. Um, Jasmine has, I mean, AOC has so much confidence when she delivers her messages and speeches. She is an incredible orator. Like if checked out a couple of her speeches, and she's had some prime stages, like at the DNC and done real, I mean, knocked it out of the park. Very Obama like. If you remember, we were introduced to President Obama at the DNC. And we were like, wow, who is this guy? Man, he's got it. Right. And when we think back to it, um, we obviously Ronald Reagan, but Bill Clinton in the 90s, Obama in the 2000s, Reagan in the 80s, and the Kennedys, right? In the 60s and early 70s until, or late 60s rather. And, it is one of the hallmarks of the Democratic Party. I mean, you look at the R side right now. Who do you point out as the de facto leader over there?
It
They don't
makes
have any stars right now.
They're worried about who comes after Trump, right? That's why they keep talking
Oh
about third
yeah,
term as he does. I mean, they have such unlikable characters over there, right? Can you imagine that stage of DeSantis and Cruz and JD Vance
no,
and Rubio, right? I mean, they're
no,
just popularity wise. Forget the fact that their policies suck and that
right,
they've all kind of like sucked up to Trump, like just as personalities. There's no charisma in the room. That's the sad thing is Trump has a little bit of he
zero.
has some political instincts. It's the worst instincts. He plays to the worst of humanity, but he has like
Right,
that ugly, shitty street smart that he knows how to tap into people's worst fears and he's a pathological liar. So he's kind of pulled it off on that side of the equation. And
right,
the other person that maybe was a leader on that side is Marjorie Taylor Greene, right? She's the rising star. I always thought she was batshit crazy and certainly
right.
wasn't a fan. But for their messaging in the MAGA movement, she was
She's
there.
it.
She was it. And boy, has she turned tail on mainstream
Ooh,
MAGA.
wow. Isn't it weird that we're using those two words together? Mainstream MAGA? That's frightening. That is scary. Good thing it's about 18 to 20% of the population, but she's going after them all the guardians of the pedophiles. She's seen the Epstein files, right? She knows what's in there. These 300 politically connected names. She knows who they are. And she's telling everyone. I saw her on a podcast, I think with that Looney Tune, the weight loss lady, Get Fit on TV lady. I can't remember her
Jillian
name.
Michaels?
That yeah. Who's batshit crazy? Um, she was telling her that it's all Donald Trump. Like all this is coming from Donald Trump. He's not getting bad advice. He's giving out the marching orders. So she's putting that out there, for everyone to hear. And I don't think it's a surprise, but no one to this point has said that.
Yep. Yeah.
So,
I mean,
we'll see where it goes. But, in the meantime, we gotta put AOC in some bubble wrap, and get these
and
stars out. I
I
like a
want the
new
party. I want the party to elevate her instead of her just organically gaining
right,
more and more traction and attention. The Ken Martin led party, and with Jeffries and
and
Schumer, like they're you know they stand in her way. They don't elevate her. And it was interesting
no,
because of Barack Obama, who was at the NBA All-Star game and has been doing a few interviews over the last several days. He's also
good,
been talking about, the fact that it's a young person's game and that some of the leaders on the Democratic side have sort of aged out. I
yep,
think that was his term. So
right,
it's not a direct message, but I assume he's talking to Chuck Schumer amongst others, as
right,
they got to make some room for some younger voices. And just to go
right,
back to AOC on the Green New Deal, we did have a quote in the chat here from Bam talking about the executive order on emissions can be rescinded. And I get that. That's one of the things that Trump has done in terms of rolling us back out of anything climate related. We're also out of the Paris Climate Agreement, right? I mean, he's re-promoting coal. I mean, we're doing
some dumb
some
shit,
idiotic shit, right,
right,
relative to climate change in the aggregate,
right,
which is a topic that, because there's so many more, what seem to be more pressing short-term topics about our democracy, we
right,
rarely even discuss anymore. Is it even going to be a topic in the midterms that
right.
MAGA has rolled back decades worth of progress in terms of trying to deal with global warming and other climate issues? I mean,
Yeah.
are we just gonna have another hottest year on record yet again for
Well,
like the fifth in a row and ignore it?
and I think this is the message, one of the messages that we need to be delivering on college campuses, because Charlie Kirk wasn't doing that. Charlie Kirk was promoting the hate and the differences between us. But these young people got to understand in 25, 30 years, you may not be able to breathe over here, because we're going to go back to those brownouts. I lived in Denver where you could see the brown smog, just enveloping the city. And, it is a huge difference, from what that was in the early 90s when I got there to when, you look at it 10, 12 years ago, 5 years ago. I mean, it's amazing in Denver. LA, the same thing,
Yeah,
but we've got to start taking care of it. We got to be better stewards of the planet.
a 16-year-old that would laugh if you talked to him about smog alerts, right? That there were
Right.
certain cities
Never heard of it.
you'd get a
Right.
warning, you get a warning that you actually
Right.
should not be breathing the air today.
Right.
What are you gonna do? Like be a shut in?
Right.
But you know, LA,
Yeah.
among
It's
other cities,
crazy.
just had the smog alerts. So it was just another place. I just use it as another place where I thought AOC showed leadership um,
Right.
on a topic that, it just she's going to just be played out to be quote right yet again
Right.
on that particular topic. So yeah, I love that MTG is beating him up on the pedophile side of things. Thomas Massey is on that like a dog on a bone. Also, it's not
Killing it.
Epstein files not going away. We could talk about that every day of new stuff that gets disclosed or trickles out. I mean, fucking
Right.
Epstein was involved. He had his tentacles everywhere. Higher education, Nobel
Yep.
Peace Prize,
Yep.
right? Trying to undermine the Pope, right? This
Right.
fucking guy thought he was like a Svengali, right? Running the world from his Epstein Island.
I mean, it's frightening the shit he was into, bro.
But he had everyone
Um,
over a barrel, right? So
yeah. He had them all compromised. No wonder Russia loved him. That's what they do. Who knows? They might have paid him millions to set people up. You know,
Well,
I
how would he
mean,
get so rich,
jeez.
right? How would he get so wealthy?
Exactly.
We haven't tracked the money yet, right? That story the other
And
day came
that's
out
that.
about Deutsche Bank, like all these workers at the bank flagged all these this wave of wire money being wired all over the place that was totally breaking their internal rules, international finance rules, wire fraud rules. They brought it to their bosses, and the bosses told them to shut the fuck up and or fired them
Right.
because they were either compromised or they were just taking a cut. Money train was too good that
Right.
no one wanted to ask the questions, the obvious questions.
Yep. And that's the scary
MTG's
part.
asking them though. MTG is asking those questions, and
Yes, she is.
we thank her for it.
Right. And that's the blessing now that they're eating each other from the inside, and turning on each other. That's a uh, a really good point. I mean that uh, it's funny too because only MAGA has owned this space, right? The turn on. I mean, the leader of the party is famous for this. Just for turning on people because they won't do what I want them to do. Um, oh yeah, there's Bam talking about Southern California, 86 to. Oh yeah, ooh, yeah, that was a tough time. That was a lot of smog, 86 to 90. I remember being out there a couple of times after graduation in 89. But yeah, but this is the way MAGA does it. And this is why this can't last and we've got to stomp it out. Because this is no way to govern, right? We're not being governed right now. We are being looted. And everyone knows it. All you got to do is look at, how much wealth Trump has acquired, since Inauguration Day. And it's ridiculous. Um, from the $400 million plane to the crypto scams, to everything else.
And a
Um,
related, a concerning story about like they got to be stopped is, sort of the headline of today was that the Iranian protests have fizzled out, right?
right, right.
Very large protests, extremely aggressive response from the government. A lot of people killed, a lot of
Yep.
people injured, and they're still chasing people down who they saw out on the streets, right? That's authoritarianism when it's entrenched. It's
Right.
really hard to overturn authoritarianism once it gets those levers of power and gets legitimacy and the military behind them. That's
Right.
where we can be in a couple of years from now. That's why this is the
Not
time
careful.
for us to take action. It's too late once they've wiped out democracy and turned it into an authoritarian rule. It's too late.
Right.
The Iranian people have now protested aggressively 5, 6 times in the last 15 years or so, where we kind of thought like
All been stomped out.
maybe this
Yeah.
time they're going to topple the regime and topple the regime. A month ago, I was optimistic. Hey, maybe they got it, right? And supposedly we were going to help them. Don't think we helped
Yep.
them a bit. And now we're kind of back, they're back to square one, right? And
Right.
we cannot let authoritarianism take hold here. It's much harder to displace it than it is to stop it from coming into play. And we're at
Right.
that tipping point where Trump's talking about voter suppression and figuring out how he's going to
Turn.
manipulate the vote. Already talking about how he's not going to acknowledge the results if they don't go in
Right.
his direction. That's only because we think that he has decided that he can't cancel them. We think
Right.
at this point. So he's moved on to strategy B and strategy C. But
Right.
he ain't going quietly.
No, we know that. That's for sure. Hey, speaking of another point of inaction, Barrow County, where they had that school shooting probably about a year and a half ago, I want to say, at Appalachian High School. Two students were killed, a couple of teachers. The dad is on trial. this is right in my backyard. You know, maybe a 10-15 minute drive from me. And you know, the dad is on trial for giving the kid access to the weapon he used in the shooting. So this will be very interesting because, you know, once we start charging the people who provide the weapon of destruction, I think you're going to see a real change in how people, you know, definitely store their weapons. And, you know, they're not going to be so quick to hand off, you know, an AK-47 or what's that other gun of choice? The big one, the
Shit.
15 something 15. Is it an AR?
AR-15,
Yeah,
AR-15.
yeah.
Well, I feel like there was a shooting in Michigan where they went after where the parents also got indicted because I remember one of the
Yes.
fathers, and I don't know what happened with that case. Something I feel like in the Georgia case, it wasn't just access to the weapon that maybe the father had actually bought it for the kid
Bought it for the
as a
kid. Yeah.
gift, but the kid was only 15 or 16. I don't know what the
Right.
rules. I don't even know what the rules are down there. Like, is there
We
is
don't
eight?
have any.
Yeah, is
Every,
18?
assume everyone has a gun here in Georgia.
But is
Just assume
18?
it.
But is 18 supposedly the age that that's why the father's on trial because he gave the son the gun before the son was 18?
Maybe, yeah,
Yeah, I have to
yeah.
look at the
I'll
exact
look at the
reason.
details, but I mean,
I mean,
you know,
we'll
again,
see.
you know, we let people drive at 16. You know, you could consider that a weapon, but you know, the fact of the matter is, what 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 positive uses could a kid have with a weapon like that?
Yeah.
You know, and if he's being bullied, you know, now you're really an idiot. You're going to give a kid that's being bullied a weapon, right? Now he feels like he can do something about it. So, you know, apparently there's this wash of power that overcomes you, you know, when you have these weapons in your hand. I'm not a big fan of them. You know, I only bought mine, you know, because I see these Trump flags rolling through here.
Yeah. I
You know,
mean,
in
shit.
between, I live in between Atlanta and Athens. So I'm in Red, Georgia. You know, Andrew Clyde is my representative. You know, he of January 6th was just a walk in the park fame. That's the moron that said that.
I
So,
mean, is there a jury in your jurisdiction that would like actually convict the father for giving his kid a
well,
gun? I mean, I guess if I'm that father, I'm taking it to court and I'm fighting.
taking my
I'm not
chances.
I'm not playing out. I'm taking my chances. I'm gonna find someone on that jury, 1 out of 12, that thinks it's
Right.
just fine.
Think it's
Give
cool.
it to give
Yeah.
it to an 8-year-old,
Right.
whatever. We need our guns.
Yeah.
Everyone
Yeah.
can have a gun except Alex Preddy, right?
Right.
So the hypocrisy of the Second Amendment comes into play. But yeah, we'll
Okay.
we'll keep an eye on that one. The other thing that bothered me today was stories about pharmaceutical companies basically just canceling their vaccine research. So 1 year into the RFK Jr. era of American healthcare, we're not going to be we're not our
So
modern medicine. We're gonna stop.
just
The
ditch.
next COVID comes around. We're not gonna have a warp speed. We're just gonna be shut-ins in our houses for the
Right.
full 3, 4,
Thoughts
5,
and prayers.
10 years if we even survive, because we don't need to have vaccines. So even with like the biggest measles outbreak in 20, 30 years, mumps in Maryland, and other fucking shit that's been, diseases that have been tucked away for decades, we're still going to let RFK Jr. create an environment where pharmaceutical companies don't even want to bother with vaccine research anymore because they don't see it as a business that could ever be profitable for them because they
Right.
function in a country that doesn't believe in vaccines.
Doesn't believe in vaccines. Right. Isn't it amazing how the anti-vax crowd won? I mean, everybody I know is vaccinated as adults. All the adults I know are pretty much vaccinated. I don't know any 35-year-old, you know, mumps and measles survivors. Like, I didn't have any of that
Mark,
shit.
the,
Chicken pox.
the Second Amendment crowd won. We need to protect the border because we're being overrun by caravans crew won. The
That never showed up.
climate change is a hoax crew won. You
And
know, look at the idiocy that actually has won or is winning in America. Just absolute fucking idiotic ideas that
all over the fucking
are
place.
making us worse, shortening our lifespans. The ultimate scorecard for a society is how long do you, maybe the quality of living, which generally ties to also the actual duration of life. That's
Right.
going backwards. Certainly, our quality of life is going backwards. Pretty soon, our wealth is going to go backwards. It
Right.
probably it has for most Americans. We just
Right.
have either finagled the numbers or quite we haven't quite acknowledged that most Americans are in a declining wealth
Yeah.
scenario. So,
Declining wealth and health.
hey, that's who we've
It,
let win. That's who
yeah.
we've let win. That's who we've empowered, and that's the ideas that are being implemented. Hey, Tahiji told us read Project 2025. No one wanted to read it. It was too long.
Nobody wanted to read the bullet points. They didn't want to read those. Didn't want to believe it. They put it all in writing. It's kind of like Jerry Maguire and his little manifesto that got him fired. It was a mission statement.
Mission
They didn't
statement. Hey, Troy Aikman liked it. He read it.
Yeah, right. All right, buddy, let's talk a little sports here. The Olympics, the pressure. Man, is there a bigger pressure cooker in sports?
I love the Winter Olympics, Mark. I can't play and never have any sport that is involved there. Can't ski, can't skate. Don't even want to be in the cold anymore, right? Not to mention bobsled and other shit. I guess I've been on a sled and gone down a hill
Right.
40 acres. That middle hill was pretty steep. That's as far as it went. But I love the Winter Olympics, partially because I love it because the Americans aren't necessarily, we're not steamrolling the world kind of like we do in the Summer Olympics, right? You know, the
Right.
athletes are not glamorous. They're skating in some rink 10 hours a day. They're not household names, right? They're kind of playing their speed skate. They're playing offbeat sports. They're not playing the biggest glamour sports in America. So they're easier to
Right.
root for. I think really easy to root for. I really like our team. But it is amazing. It's a mental exercise in
Right.
handling the pressure of the world stage.
Right.
And some have met the moment and some have crumbled. And it's kind of it's heartbreaking to watch like
Yeah.
that our skater who was considered one maybe the on the brink of being considered the greatest of all time, the male skater Ilya something, and he fell
Ilya
twice.
Malin. Ilya
Yeah,
Malinin.
yeah, great immigrant, American immigrant, certainly, and yeah, fell a couple of times, and
Wow.
but the ugly, very often we're looked at as the ugly Americans in the world, right? But
Right.
our
Right.
Winter Olympic team is beloved, being rooted for by foreign fans, and they're such great statesmen and sportsmen. This guy Ilya had the worst moment of his life, a shockingly horrendous performance for the favorite, and he walked off the ice and spent 30 seconds congratulating the guy who was about to get the gold medal. I
Yeah.
couldn't even believe it. I figured he was going to be bawling his eyes out or just trying to get away from anyone. And then he did an interview for like 40, like 2 minutes, trying to
Right.
explain why and he admitted that just the pressure of the moment had gotten to him. So
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
watching everything. I'm covered.
Um,
I'm wall to wall. I turn it on when I wake up in the morning. I've been watching it all day, every day.
yeah, because I'm such a big um,
Wait, I
with
lost you
the
for a second.
Team
Wait,
USA.
I lost you for a second.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was saying Team USA hockey has been such a disappointment. Mike Eruzione and those guys. I remember, cheering for those guys when they beat Russia. And people forget, when they beat Russia, they still had to go and play again in order to get the gold medal.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of people forget.
And we're losing going into the
But
third period.
right, right. And came back and pulled that one off. And, right now, you look at Team USA hockey, and you just wonder how many of these guys are MAGA.
Yeah,
Because
I
we've
worry about
seen
that.
the 1980 team, a good number of them, with the
Yeah.
Trump hats on at Trump rallies, standing for Trump and
Yeah, and
his
I hope
and
not, because the team's been pretty outspoken against ICE in particular. If not just going after MAGA, to me it's all the same. But on
right.
another topic, in terms of the women's team, I mean, if we're going to talk to things in an honest conversation in black and white, you have to be happy that one of the star players is a black woman
Absolutely.
from Cleveland Heights and scored like
Yes.
3 goals in a row. So I would hope that the women's team is not MAGA because they're in the locker room, shoulder to shoulder, in the foxhole with a black woman as their teammate chasing gold. And I would hope that that changes their mindset in life because
Right.
they're surrounded by black excellence. As
Right.
it
And
changed my mindset in life, as I tell you all the time, because I grew up around black excellence. And I'm hoping that's the experience that the women's hockey team is getting.
yeah, Layla Edwards, one of two African Americans to play on USA Hockey, men or women, has scored a goal, like you said, in every game. She is just a beast, um, an incredible player. And you know what's interesting too, as my son rose through the ranks in hockey, the better competition and the better teams that he played on, the less of the racial stuff we heard, which was really, very. I was so glad to hear that. And even in college, um, I think somebody may have said to him, "I think you're playing the wrong sport," because he was aggressive out there. But I mean, that's like the worst comment he had in 5 years of hockey, NCAA Division I hockey. So, I've always looked at hockey in a different vein because, I we we had a coach who was uh he was Marty Brodera's roommate on some of those New Jersey Devils Stanley Cups, and his name was Jim McKenzie. If you ever need a good laugh, take a look at some of his fights on YouTube. And this guy has the biggest human head that I've ever seen. Like his head. I was like, how did you get a helmet? Did they have to order special helmets? Because your noggin is ginormous. And he was the nicest guy that, I mean, he loved Malcolm. I hated leaving his team to go play for another team. And man, there was a comment made up in Detroit, and coach let the other team have it. And I was just like, oh my God, I hope coach doesn't start. And we knew what it was all about, right? But coach had Malcolm's back. And there wasn't a better guy in the country to have his back because he's a professional NHL fighter, which means he can take a punch too. But he was the nicest guy. Opened his home. We spent weekends in his home. I mean, just the salt of the earth, nicest guy. Multiple Stanley Cup winner, and just as humble as you might imagine. And Malcolm had two coaches that were also, just amazing. And one played for the Russian national team, and the other was the third draft pick after Mike Modano, I believe, in the '87
Well,
NHL draft. Scott
I'm,
Pearson, just the nicest guy. So the
I'm
'80 team just let me down, bro.
Yeah, I know. I'm happy to hear that because I guess I still stuck maybe in 30 years ago where hockey was really racist. And I like to think it's coming around because, we always talk about it that like sports at its best is a galvanizing event.
Right,
It brings people together. It's part of why I hate the NFL because they have such a
right.
platform and could do so much for the country, but it's owned by like 30 MAGA fuckers and they just like do window dressing, even though they do have a melting pot of cultures and
No doubt.
races and all that in the league, but they don't embrace it. and they let the owners allow it to still be like this feudal system, right, where whites run everything and blacks are the labor. But other sports do it so much better. And the Olympics isn't perfect, right? It's a bunch of countries getting together. So it's like the UN. There's a
Right.
lot of stupid shit. Like they banned the Ukraine bobsledder because he wore a helmet that had the like decals of,
Yeah.
lost soldiers in the war, and it wasn't like an official helmet. So like they
Right.
do kind of stupid shit like that. Um,
You got the curling controversy going on.
yeah, the Canadian guy went elbows up, right? But in general, it's good. In general, it brings out the best of us. In general, you're just watching people that are striving for something great. In general, the
Right.
sportsmanship is great. In general, it shows that we can, get along as people, and that the differences are overplayed. And I think it just should, once again, as my final point, like it should embarrass us a little bit as Americans, right? That once
Right.
again, MAGA's up in arms by different shit. They're always pissed off about something, and
Yep.
that, and in the latest case, it was some comments about ice. Why? How
Yeah.
could our athletes, just shut up and ski, shut up and bobsled? You know, when we're supposed to be the country of free speech, and we should
Right.
be promoting our
A
people out
land of
there.
opportunity. Yeah. And and that's what I think, makes remember the 72 Olympics in Munich with the shootings and the kidnappings and the political statements that were being made. Remember the
Well,
68 Olympics?
Mark,
Um,
if you're Jewish, the '72 Olympics is like I was 6 years old. It's coming at you from one of the first things when you can contemplate what goes on in the world, right?
right.
Because what they kidnapped and killed, well, they didn't kidnap, they killed seven Israeli athletes, eight
Athletes,
Israeli
yeah.
athletes, or something like that. It's the only
Right.
time there's ever been, in essence, I shouldn't say the only time there's been terrorism, because there was terrorism in Atlanta, right? The bomb went off at the
Right. The
Summer
bombings.
Olympics. Yeah,
Yep.
but this was targeted, political terrorism to a specific group. So yeah, I mean, look, shit, there was politics in the Olympics going back to 1936 and Jesse
Right.
Owens in Germany,
The
right?
Owens.
So there's always political overlay of the Olympics. You can't take it out of it when you bring the world together,
Right.
and we shouldn't worry about taking out of it. I mean, we got to take the violence out of it, but
Right. All right. Well, I'm going to start tuning in,
come
man.
on, man. It's
Some
the
of these
last week.
statements,
Everything's
man.
heating up now.
I
Everything's the
know.
fine. A lot of gold medal action in this last week. All right, Mark, we
Let's,
will.
yeah,
Yeah, I
let's see
lost
what
it
the
for a second.
does.
Always a pleasure, and we'll pick it up again. We'll pick up again
Yes,
tomorrow
sir.
with AOC, leading
Sounds
the
good.
charge for us.
No doubt. All
All right,
right, bro.
all right,
See
Mark. Take it easy. Talk to you tomorrow.